So let's talk about the fight yesterday with Alexander Usyk and Rico. I forgot his last name, the kickboxer guy. This guy, I don't know. I've seen him, talk about boxing before with the bald head from overseas, wherever he's from, sounding crazy. He's not even. He don't know what he's talking about. Rico was beating up on Usyk, and Rico, he was hurt a couple of times in the fight. But that's boxing. Usyk, being a boxer, he knew how to not show that he was hurt as much as the other guy. He kept his composure more. This guy's not used to taking, world-class punches, like that from a heavyweight champion, where Usyk is used to that. So, that's another thing that's the difference. He might be used to, oh my God, he get kicked in the head or whatever and all that. But it's different when you're getting punched in the head with some fast, hard, compact shots. I think one thing that Usyk is underrated with is his punching power. I think he's a pretty good puncher. Even though he moved up from, I think, a light heavyweight. But anyway, all this stuff about this guy's talking about he's 39 years old, he's old. Yeah, that's bullshit. The other guy was 37. Okay? So let's not get into the age thing. Usyk was old to begin with when he came in as a heavyweight. He was in his 30s then. So he's already old then in boxing. You understand what I'm saying? Let's not make the excuses. This guy, he's on some other stuff. He's trying to make excuses for Usyk. He's not the same Usyk. He just knocked out Daniel Dubois, who can't really box. He's only beat, maybe two guys that know how to box some, and that's Tyson Fury and who maybe the other one. Because Dubois can't box. He can't box at all. He just got heart and he fights. Okay? But he can't box. Joshua. Anthony Joshua, who was a mediocre fighter, who's been knocked out before that, who's been beaten before that Usyk fight. So, and he's very, very, very mediocre. He was knocked out by Daniel Dubois pretty easily. You know what I mean? So that's really the only two names he got on his resume that has any real stature. Any real stature. He became champion at an old age, and they talking about he can beat a prime Muhammad Ali. Ali in his 20s, that's crazy. What's this guy named? Alexander Usyk. He's a stand-up, straight up and down, stiff European fighter. Okay, he moves a lot and all that, but today the heavyweights are weak. They're not like they was, it's not jam-packed with talent, the heavyweight division like it was back in the 70s, and then how it got to like the mid 80s all the way up to the 90s, when you had the Mike Tysons and the Razor Ruddicks and the Lennox Lewis and the Evander Holyfields and the Ray Mercers, Michael Moores and the David Tours and the Ike Ibeabuchi and Chris Bird, Klitschko's, and so on and so on. You know what I mean? We don't have them type of guys. Some of the guys I just mentioned are Hall of Fame fighters. Okay? How many Hall of Fame fighters have Usyk fought? And I like Usyk, but he cannot be compared to Muhammad Ali. Ali would box circles around him and beat him up and knock him out late in the fight. Okay, let's come back down to earth. Okay? Now I don't know if these people put him up there because he's a great white hope or something, but he's not that. He's not the greatest heavyweight of all time. And he only had 25 fights and almost got stopped, if it wasn't for that uppercut or whatever he landed. And also, that round was over with. And they tell me, he would have came out, this guy told me, he would have demolished Rico and all of that. You don't know if he would have demolished Rico. It looked like the same exact thing might have happened with the Rico Alexander Usyk fight that happened with the Buster Douglas Mike Tyson fight, where Buster Douglas was down. He was down, and then from the Mike Tyson uppercut, same punch. Mike Tyson knocked down Douglas with an uppercut, and that's the punch that hurt Rico. And then Douglas, at the end of the round, he got up and all that stuff like that. He had a minute to get his head together, and he came back out, and he did what he did to Mike. He knocked Mike out. And Rico could have done the same thing because he was really winning that whole fight. You know, what's his name? Usyk might have won maybe a couple rounds, 3 rounds, maybe. That's it. But he was getting overwhelmed. He was being dominated in that match. Okay, let's keep it real. This guy's sitting up here lying and being biased, acting like trying to cover up like it ain't what it is. We all seen what it is. Even the commentators were saying he needed a knockout. But you want to come out here, oh, this and that and that. You want to protect white supremacy. It's not about that. This is boxing. We ain't even got to go as far as Muhammad Ali beating Usyk. Mike Tyson in his prime would have destroyed Usyk. Anywhere between 1 and maybe 4 rounds. And that's giving him love, 4 rounds. If Mike would have jumped on him in his prime like he did them other guys and wanted to get him out of there, he could have got him in the first round. You understand what I'm saying? And not just Mike Tyson. I say would have defeated Usyk. I think Holyfield would have got him too, man. Holyfield at his best. It would have been a tougher fight because Holyfield not a big puncher, but all that stuff that Holyfield did, man, just skill level and determination. Even though Usyk's determined, you know, he would have went out, man. He couldn't even handle that kickboxing like that. A guy that only had 2 professional boxing matches. Okay? So, and, you know, he's talking all this stuff like he's an authority in boxing, and you never laced up the gloves. You're a civilian, dog. Okay? I'm a former professional boxer, heavyweight. I've been in there with heavyweight champions. Okay? So, that was my profession. This is not your profession to be out here, oh this and oh that. You're going to tell everybody they're not seeing what they're seeing, believe you them more than their lying eyes and all that stuff. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just an armchair expert, you know, just sipping on some beer and somewhere in a bar over in Ireland or wherever you're from. You know what I mean? Maybe you was drunk or drinking when you made this video here because you're off. You know, but Usyk is not what they made him out to be. He's a great white hype, another great white hype. You know what I mean? But he can box. I give him that. He's a good fighter, but he's just come along at the right time. Anytime you're mid-30s and late 30s and all that, coming in there, beating people like that, then the talent's not there. Okay? The talent's not there in the heavyweight division. I believe Lennox Lewis would have beat Usyk too. I believe the Klitschko's, at least the older brother, would have beat Usyk because the older brother kind of fight like and kind of had the same range as Rico. But he's much more, way more better than Rico because of his boxing knowledge and experience. So if you would have put Vitali in there that night, he would have ended up knocking Usyk out. I mean, there's a lot of guys would have beat Usyk. Some of them would have knocked him out, man. Let's keep it real here. All that, he the greatest. Now you're making yourself look like a racist by saying that and trying to cover up and make excuses for him. Okay? Just sit down, shut up, because you don't know what you're talking about. It's not your profession. Whatever your profession is, that's like me going there where your profession is, and I don't have 0 experience at it. And I don't know what you do. You work at a steel mill, you're a machinist or something, CNC machinery. I don't know what you do, a landscaper. But I go out there and try to tell you how to do your landscaping job or your concrete job or your machinery job or anything like that. And I don't know anything about any of that stuff. I just seen it on a video. You understand what I'm saying? You don't know what it is to get hit by a guy that's 400 pounds, 370 pounds, heavyweight 6'9". I do. And I took out guys like that. Okay? So it's not about size. You're talking about, what's his name? What's the guy's name? Usyk. He beating guys way bigger and all that. I beat guys a lot bigger than any guy that Usyk ever fought. Okay? So, and I'm not heavyweight champion. I wasn't heavyweight champion of the world, but I was a pro boxer. All right? I started boxing when I was 7 years old. So you're coming out here with all this craziness, and it just shows me that you don't know nothing about boxing, and you're talking out of emotions, and your emotions seem like it's being backed by racism. Because why are you trying to back up this guy so much You know, he's a good fighter and all that, yeah. But he's not nowhere near Muhammad Ali. He's not Ali. You talking about he would have beat the brakes off of Ali. Ali would have beat his ass and knocked him out late round stoppage. And that's just being real right there. Okay? Ali wasn't a big puncher, but he was the best technician in the heavyweight division that boxing's ever seen. Usyk actually tries to box like him with that movement, but he's very stiff and he's slow because he's an old fighter. He came in as a heavyweight. By the time he made it to heavyweight, he was in his 30s and all that. You think Usyk in his 30s would have defeated a Muhammad Ali at 24, 25 years old that knocked out Cleveland Big Cat Williams? You're out of your mind if you think that. I don't know what you're doing. You must be doing something worth more than drinking some beer or something. You must be on some crack if you believe Usyk would have beat Muhammad Ali. All right? So just go somewhere and sit down and shut up. Maybe you need to stop making these videos because you're making yourself look stupid. Let me also say that Usyk has been proven to be easy to hit, man. He's an easy target. That guy, as soon as he came in there, first round, first right hand he threw, he landed it right on Usyk's chin. Okay, Usyk is not hard to hit. And, you know, it's just, it is what it is. You know, he has you know, flaws. It's just not a good fighter and a good enough fighter to show it. You know, and oh, he beat Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury was also beat by, or some people would say beat by, and robbed. The guy got robbed. You know, they said he was beat by that kickboxer Ngannou, whatever his name is. Whether he was beaten or not, the guy gave him a hell of a fight. You know what I'm saying? And he shouldn't have gave him that type of fight because he's just a kickboxer. Next fight, he went in there and Anthony Joshua blew him out. But see, somebody who wants Usyk to be the great white hype will say, well, you think Muhammad Ali, these guys are awkward and all that. Well, you think Muhammad Ali, he couldn't have did that to Muhammad Ali? No, he wouldn't have done that to Muhammad Ali. If anything, Muhammad Ali is actually what you would call awkward, like those kickboxers. That's another reason why they couldn't hit him in his prime. You know, Usyk is big and slow because for one, he's old. By the time he became heavyweight, he was old. He was in his 30s. Okay, and he's robotic, and but he moves a lot. But he has good timing. Okay, and he's a thinking fighter. So I see his flaws, and I've been seeing this, and I've been wanting to say it, but it's out there now. You know, if anyone that don't know what they seen last night, this is what you seen. You seen a guy that threw Usyk off because he was more awkward. He was Muhammad Ali awkwardness, okay? But he wasn't Muhammad Ali greatness, and he basically was beating the brakes off of Usyk. Okay, so imagine if Ali was in there with Usyk, he would have just destroyed him. All right, and like I said, Usyk is easy to hit. It's proven for anybody that has any type of skill. And Usyk, he has good timing, but he's kind of slow for a heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? You know, because he's robotic. But his timing is so good, he's able to hit people. And this is just the truth. Okay, somebody may throw a tantrum, oh, well, this, that, and that. You know, whatever. You know, I was a professional boxer. Are you? Were you? Okay? So, if you want to say something negative about what I'm saying, then I could say something negative about your profession, if you even got a profession. Okay, I could come to your job and tell you what to do down at your job, if you even got a job. Okay? This is something that, you know, that I've been doing all my life. I started boxing when I was 7 years old. So I know something about this. All right? And that's it. Like I said, I like Usyk. He came along at the right time. He don't really have that many fights. He only got 25 fights. Muhammad Ali had about 60 fights. So you really think that he wouldn't get any losses with another within another 35 fights? You're crazy. He'll have more losses than Muhammad Ali had. And Ali had losses after he was out his prime, after he was off 3.5 years. They took away from him in his prime because he didn't want to go into the Vietnam War. He was against the war. He was political. He was for people's rights. Okay, these other guys is not standing up for nothing. All right. So, and I like I say, I like Usyk. And the other losses came, you know, some of those, Ali was coming down with Stockholm's, what do they call that? Not Stock, Parkinson. You know, he was starting to slow down his speech and all that stuff. This is no excuse, this is the truth. You know, later on in life, you can see Ali was completely deteriorated from Parkinson. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, this is the difference between excuses and the truth. Okay? So that's that. You know what I mean? Like I said, I like Usyk, but the truth is the truth. Oh, another thing, one last thing. You know, people talking about the sport of boxing was embarrassed, almost embarrassed. I don't think so at all. You know, this guy is a kickboxer, which means he boxes too. Don't just use his feet, he uses his arms, his upper body to punch. So it'd been different if the guy was just straight off the street and did something like that. Yeah, that'd be an embarrassment. But this guy's a professional fighter. So I just see it as, hey, it is what it is. You know, he beat up on Usyk. You know, that's it. You know, Usyk is not as great as they say. Would he have been able to do anything like that with Muhammad Ali? Hell no. Hell no. That's the difference. Rico wouldn't have been able to do nothing like that with Muhammad Ali. First of all, Ali would have been moving and moving and moving first because he don't even know nothing really about this guy except he's a kickboxer. And he does that with all fighters. He'll fill him out, then he'll start catching them. And it would have been like what people said that Usyk was supposed to do with Rico. That's what Ali would have done to Rico. It would have been an easy fight for Ali because of all that movement Ali has. Ali in his prime, that's what it is. This is Usyk at his best. Okay, Usyk, like I said, he started as a heavyweight when he was in his 30s, and he's still in his 30s. So it's not like, oh, this is the old Usyk. Usyk, when he became heavyweight, was old. So this guy is full of it. You know what I mean? This guy, the bald head dude, whatever, with that accent, he's a racist. You know, anytime you make up excuses like that, and then you said he would have beat Muhammad Ali like that, you know, that's just blatant racism. You know, you want your guy to win because he's a white guy. He's a great white hype. Great white hope, great white hype. You know, and I won't say he's all hype with Usyk. I think Usyk is a very good fighter. And for what he's doing for his time, he has to be considered great. But overall, if he was in other top periods of boxing, other what you would call eras, he would just be a good fighter in those other eras. You know, I don't think he would ever become champion when in the 90s when you had Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson, Riddick Bowe, and all them guys. You know, Usyk is good, but Riddick would have beat him too. Riddick at his best would have beat Usyk. Plus, he would have been fighting an old man. You know, a 25-year-old Riddick Bowe fighting a 35, 30 bigs, 37-year-old, 38, 39-year-old, slow Usyk. It would have been a mixed match. He would have just knocked him. He would have just caught up with him and knocked him out, man. Simple and plain. And that's when Usyk was heavyweight. Was when he was in his 30s. He was not heavyweight in his 20s. Okay, so people need to come off their high horse and all this stuff about he's the greatest and all that. That's a bunch of hype. That's white supremacy because that's great white hope, great white hype. You know what I mean? A guy in his 30s is going to be better than Mike Tyson in his 20s, Muhammad Ali in his 20s, and all those other great fighters when they're in their 20s and stuff. It's just stop it. That's it. All right. So that's it. That's all I have to say. And I'm going for good this time, or at least unless I hear something else that they say that's dumb again. But at this time, in this juncture, I think I made my point.